On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, it's about CSS properties related to text margins. You can learn about the usage and how to write properties like line height and word spacing. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. Please make use of it. Now, let's take a look at the line height property. Line height is a CSS property used to set the line spacing, line height. Line height specifies the vertical space between lines, used to enhance readability or adjust spacing as part of the design. Unitless numbers specify a height relative to the font size. For example, specifying 1.5 sets the line height to 1.5 times the font size. This method is useful for responsive design. Percentage specify the line height as a percentage of the font size. For example, specifying 150% sets the line height to 150% of the font size. Fixed values, px, m, rem, etc. Specify the line height in absolute units. For example, you can specify a concrete value like 20 px, but it may lack flexibility in responsive design. Specifying normal applies the browser's default line spacing settings. Typically, it will be about 1.2 to 1.4 times the font size. Readable paragraphs. A line height of about 1.5 to 1.6 is usually recommended for readability. If the line spacing is too narrow, the text will be cramped and hard to read, and if it's too wide, the text will feel disjointed. Heading design. For headings and titles where the text is larger, line spacing can be reduced. Settings like 1.1 or 1.2 are often used. Line height is an important property for improving both the readability and design of text. Using relative values, numbers or percentages, makes it easier to adapt to responsive designs. For headings with large text and paragraphs with smaller text, it's crucial to set appropriate line spacing for each. Leveraging this property can make the appearance of text more readable and enhance its design quality. Next, let's look at the letter spacing property. Letter spacing is a CSS property used to adjust the spacing between characters, letter spacing. This property can be used to tidy up the text design, enhance readability, and achieve specific styles. In this example, it is specified as follows. Normal, the default letter spacing. It is a standard value determined by the browser and font. 4px, an example of widened letter spacing. Adds 4 pixels of space between each character. -1px, an example of narrowed letter spacing. Reduces 1 pixel of space between each character. Values with units. Setting a positive value will increase the letter spacing. Setting a negative value will decrease the letter spacing. Units are typically in px, pixels, or m. Default. Normal. Use the default letter spacing. Normally, the standard letter spacing defined by the font is applied. Improved readability. For small font sizes or overly condensed fonts, you can improve readability by increasing letter spacing. Design adjustment. You can adjust letter spacing to visually emphasize design elements such as titles or logos. Adjustment between words. You can adjust spacing at the letter level rather than between words. Letter spacing adjusts letter level spacing, but use word spacing to expand the space between words. Design balance. If you increase letter spacing too much, the whole text might look too stretched out. Conversely, if you decrease it too much, the text can become cramped and difficult to read, so it's important to maintain an appropriate balance. Letter spacing is a property that adjusts the space between letters, affecting both design and readability. You can increase spacing with positive values and decrease it with negative values. It's effective for titles and specific design elements, but be careful not to compromise readability. By using this property, you can adjust the appearance of text and achieve attractive designs. Next, let's look at the word spacing property. Word spacing is a CSS property that controls the space between words in a text. Proper use of this property can improve visual balance and text readability. Word spacing is particularly useful in typography-focused designs and responsive design scenarios. In this example, it is specified as follows. Normal applies the default word spacing. This is the browser's initial value. 4px, an example of increased word spacing. Adds 4 pixels of margin between each word. -1px, an example of decreased word spacing. Reduces the space between each word by 1 pixel. Word and letter spacing, an example of decreased word and letter spacing. Reduces the space between words by 0.1 m and between letters by 0.05 m compared to normal. Setting a positive value for word spacing will expand the word spacing. On the other hand, using negative values narrows the spaces between words. Negative values may be used to emphasize visual effects or to tighten letter spacing for specific design reasons. Word spacing is a property that adjusts the space between words, while letter spacing adjusts the space between letters. By combining these properties, you can have more precise control over the typography of entire texts. Excessive space adjustment. Overuse of word spacing can lead to a decrease in readability. Especially too large or too small spaces can be stressful for users, making moderate adjustments important. Responsive design. Specifying relative values using m or rem is effective for responsive design because it ensures proper display across different screen sizes. Heading style adjustment. By widening the space between words in heading text, you can add visual emphasis. This allows you to clarify the hierarchy of content and achieve a sophisticated design. Next, let's look into the word break property. Word break is a CSS property that controls how text wraps when it exceeds the width of the container. Normally, browsers break lines at word boundaries, but specific settings can improve appearance and readability when long words or URLs are present. You can specify the following values for the word break property. Normal is the default value. When a word exceeds the width of the container, it will break at word boundaries. This setting is common in languages like English, and breaks do not occur in the middle of words. Break all is a setting where line breaks can be inserted after any character, as needed. Especially when long words or URLs are included, line breaks occur at character level to prevent layout disruption. Keep all is a setting used particularly for Asian languages, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, etc. In this setting, the entire word is preserved, and no breaks occur in the middle of words. However, for space-separated languages like English, normal word boundary line breaks are applied. This example shows 3 different word break settings. With word break normal, the whole word is preserved and breaks at word boundaries if it exceeds the container's width. With word break break all, breaks occur even in the middle of words. Word break keep all allows natural breaks for Asian languages like Japanese and word boundary breaks for English. On mobile devices, screen width is limited, which can cause text including URLs or long words to exceed the screen width. In such cases, applying word break all allows line breaks at character level to fit screen width, improving readability. Next, let's take a look at the hyphens property. The hyphens property is used in CSS to specify how word hyphenation, splitting words with hyphens, should be handled when breaking lines of text. By setting this property appropriately, you can improve the readability and appearance of the text. Hyphenation is particularly useful when long words need to be wrapped. Since hyphenation rules vary by language, this property depends on the text's locale. The hyphens property can be set to the following values. None number hyphenation is applied. Words will typically break only at the end of the word. Manual hyphenation is applied manually. In this case, you need to specify hyphenation points manually within the HTML. For example, you can use and shy soft hyphen. Auto. The browser automatically applies hyphenation at appropriate positions. In this case, the document's language lang attribute must be correctly specified. Importance of language settings. When using hyphens, auto, proper hyphenation requires the lang attribute of the HTML document to be set correctly. Font dependency. Some fonts may not be suitable for hyphenation. Use of hyphenation dictionaries. Hyphenation rules depend on the dictionaries used by the browser. Therefore, it may not work as expected for certain languages. By properly utilizing the hyphens property, you can significantly improve text layout. Especially for multilingual websites and mobile-friendly designs, Appropriately using auto and manual can enhance the user experience. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. Your support keeps this channel motivated. Please subscribe to the channel.